Good morning, Colorado. You are listening to the Daily Sun Up. It's a conversation with the Colorado Sun. I'm team editor David Krause. Before we jump into today's conversation, here is a quick message from our sponsor.
Support comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a seamless mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Credit Union of Colorado. Honestly good. Learn more at honestlygood.org. Got leftover paint taking up space? Recycle it with Paint Care. Paint Care makes it simple and easy for households and businesses to recycle their leftover paint responsibly. Drop it off for free at one of more than 200 sites across Colorado. To learn more, visit paintcare.org. If your air conditioner never seems to stop running, old windows could be the reason. Upgrade now during Window Nation's Buy 4, Get 4 free sale. Replace your windows and get half free. Plus, no money down and no interest for 2 years. Don't wait. Save big today. Visit windownation.com. Proud partner of Wounded Warrior Project.
Now, back to the show.
Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. Welcome to another edition of our Reporter Chats here. I'm John Ingold, healthcare reporter at the Colorado Sun. Joining me as always for our conversations is Michael Booth, our wonderful climate and environment reporter. Hey Mike.
Hey John, taking a break from World Cup TV.
Can't pull yourself away.
It's on in the background.
I thought I heard something. Before we jump into the news today, I want to remind folks, if you are still making up your mind on the primary elections, which are next Tuesday is election day, we have a bunch of candidate forums that are available on our YouTube for you to watch. You can check out forums on the governor's race, on the attorney general's contest, some congressional races, and maybe help make up your mind on who you want to support. So, Mike, speaking of doing things to enrich your mind and expand your mind, and in this case, sort of blow your mind, I'm really surprised at a story you have coming up about homes that are 3D printed. And I'm just having trouble even imagining what this looks like. So walk me through this.
Absolutely. And speaking of candidate forums and affordable housing issues, which the candidates should be speaking about, and I know our great political staff tries to get them to talk about it instead of just attacking each other. But affordable housing, of course, is a huge issue in Colorado as it is across most of the country. And there are some entrepreneurs out there who, in addition to trying to find public financing and ease some of the regulations that makes it hard to build cheaper housing, they're also just trying to see if there's a different way we could build the houses, the structures themselves, that is cheaper, faster, not ugly, not kind of third, fourth tier, but giving people who deserve them, and are willing to pay for them, good-looking modular homes. And modular homes are very popular when they're done well, and they can be much more affordable. So there's a company that started in Los Angeles in reaction to Los Angeles' ongoing housing crises that are even worse than Colorado's. And then they get worsened again by natural disasters like wildfires that burn down a bunch of housing stock, and they need to replace them quickly. So Azure 3D Printed Home, spelled A-Z-U-R-E, has this concept. They get a warehouse, they set up a bunch of machines that look like giant, one-story high glue guns, and they get recycled plastic pellets and mix them with some fiberglass. So there's big bags of these things sitting next to these glue guns in the warehouse, and put your hand in it and it looks like, it just feels like, tiny little pellets. It feels like almost like poppy seeds, a little bigger than that. Those get sent through the giant glue guns, melted at 600 degrees. And then there's a platform control the size of a garage that's rotated by software that's got the design already put into it. And the platform rotates underneath this glue gun, and it extrudes a line of plastic that's about a half-inch thick and goes along what are going to be the walls of this structure. And over the course of somewhere between 24 and 40 hours, prints out the walls and the roof and the floor of a home that's made out of recycled plastic. And then they add roof structure, and they add the interior. They run electrical wires through the holes that they've created. It's all solar powered with a solar panel on the roof and a solar bank of battery power inside. And you get a printed home from 3D. And you've also, in the process, for those of us who are still environmental fans, 150,000 used plastic water bottles and drink bottles get used up in the process of building one of these structures.
These homes, like, how big are we talking? Are these just like really tiny homes, or are we talking, multiple rooms?
Great question. So their basic unit, the smallest unit, is about 9 feet wide by 20 feet long. So 170, 180 square feet total. And what it really is, and it can be up on a trailer, so it can be used as almost like an RV. Some people are using them to plop it down in a mountain meadow where they bought cheap land and have it be their cabin. It can also be just the first module of 2 or 3 modules that you put together. And so you create, the main module is your kitchen and a small dining area. And then you have another module that has 2 bedrooms on it. And they start at about $70,000 retail for the smallest module. And the larger, if you add on a second module with the bedrooms, it's more like $120,000 starting from there, depending on your finishes. They don't claim to be the absolute cheapest per square foot. There's certain basic costs per square foot that you just have to put in place. But they say it's their goal, their target is to be about 30% cheaper per square foot than a comparable size and quality home, and 70% faster in terms of how they can build it and then assemble it on your site for a developer or for an affordable house. You can stack them and put them in rows to make an affordable housing neighborhood. And San Luis Obispo in California is doing that with a bunch of these Azure printed homes from California. And it looks pretty cool. I think they're trying to open it later this summer. So it's just another entry in these homes. We've written at The Sun about people who do this with concrete down in the San Luis Valley. You have this enormous machine that is extruding out a couple inch layer of concrete on each layer, and you end up a couple of days later with a concrete poured home. And this is a smaller version of that. So we will continue to follow their success, write a longer story about it later this week or early next week at coloradosun.com. People can keep an eye out for that and see the pictures of what these little units look like and how the process works. But it's just it's being run in Colorado by a guy who used to be involved in state finance for affordable housing. And so he's got both a kind of a personal and moral interest in the job, and of course now an entrepreneur's interest in making the company work. And it's something we'll continue to follow as another way to attack the affordable housing crisis.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, we'll let people know more about it. John, you have been continuing to work on the very complicated issue of trying to get cheaper prescription drugs for Colorado. It's now a 7-year saga since legislation was first passed. There have been some recent developments on it, but we're still not quite there yet. But it's being pushed at the top levels of state government, as you are demonstrating this week with a conversation with the governor. So tell us what's the latest.
Yeah, so you're talking about healthcare costs. You were talking about housing costs. I'm talking about healthcare costs. 2 really huge issues that our state government has been trying to find creative solutions to. And this particular one is one that you mentioned has been going on since 2019. It's the state trying to import cheaper prescription drugs from Canada. And it comes across as like this really simple idea, right? Like, our prescription drugs in Colorado cost a lot. The same drugs up in Canada cost less. Why don't we go up there, buy them there, bring them back to Colorado, and sell them in our pharmacies here for less money? It ends up being very, very complicated, not least of which because the state needed federal approval, which it just recently got. Only last week did the federal government finally sign off on approving importation of Canadian drugs from Canada to Colorado. As part of this program. Colorado is the second state after Florida to win approval for an importation program. But as long as this has been going on, as many hoops as the state has already had to jump through, this was probably the easy part to get federal approval, because now you actually need to get both the Canadian government and the drug manufacturers to work with you to agree to allow you to import these drugs.
And the Canadian government is saying, wait, maybe this is a good idea, but you can't take our supply of certain drugs. We need them up here. So don't buy up our entire supply.
Yeah, so understandably, the Canadian government does not want to see its own supply of drugs diluted or diminished. And so they have said that they will not allow exports of their drugs into the United States unless they will not allow export if there is a shortage of those drugs in Canada. So they're saying if we already don't have enough of them, you can't take them and move them into the United States. That seems to be maybe a surmountable hurdle. You need to find places and find drugs that there's not a shortage of. The bigger challenge is trying to figure out how to get manufacturers on board. Right? These are companies that are selling the exact same drugs in the United States for higher prices. What incentive do they have to export these drugs from Canada where they're selling them at a lower price and then give American consumers a better deal? The state has looked at a number of sort of workarounds, and the problem always ends up coming back to the manufacturer. You obviously need to work with a distributor who's, a wholesaler who's buying these drugs up in Canada. The manufacturers have sort of anticipated that there might be an effort to re-import these drugs from Canada, and they've put clauses in their contracts with distributors up in Canada that say you will not export these drugs to the United States. So you need to get the manufacturers okay. The state has in the past reached out to a number of manufacturers, and they have not had success in getting these manufacturers on board. Sometimes the companies will just flat out say no. Sometimes they won't respond. Sometimes they kind of responded and then sort of ghosted the state, but they've never had a company that said like, oh yeah, we're on board. We'll work with you on this. So it's been a real challenge. The Polis administration is hoping that now having this federal approval in hand will give them sort of a new argument to make to manufacturers like, hey, this is real. We can actually do this. Why don't you help us out? Why don't you, give your approval for these drugs to be imported into the United States?
John, call me crazy. Try not to laugh too hard at what I'm about to say. Couldn't the U.S. drug manufacturers lower their prices in the U.S.?
So I think I had a really good conversation with Governor Polis about this. And one thing that he has really done throughout his administration, it's not just on prescription drugs, but he's been really ambitious in trying to lower healthcare costs, right? We've talked about it before. He opened an office of saving people money on healthcare. He's tried a number of programs in the insurance space and the prescription drug space, done some programs on hospital price transparency, really tried to bring out these new tools and these new things to lower the costs of healthcare in Colorado. And it's been a hard road to go down. It's something that at the state level is very, very difficult to do. It's tough to come up with creative solutions when the federal government is sort of the big player in the whole system. And so his argument was like, we've tried to do a lot. We've done as much as we can as the state. We really need the federal government now to get on board. So whether manufacturers can lower their prices or not, I'm not a pharmaceutical economics expert, certainly. There's all sorts of arguments that get made in that area, but the federal government really has the power to do a lot more here than the state government would. So that's why you see states kind of trying these almost sort of quirky policy initiatives to be like, hey, what if we imported drugs from here? Or what if we set up this board that could regulate some prescription drug prices? It's just been a real challenge for the state.
If you had to guess, do you think that before Governor Polis has to leave office, we're going to be treated to some kind of Instagram unboxing of the first imported Canadian drug in Colorado?
I mean, we're closing in on the final 6 months, right? It's given the pace that this has moved, it's a pretty short timeline to get that done. And I think it does speak to not just in the healthcare space, but in all sorts of spaces. The Polis administration, again, has been ambitious. It's tried to be creative with some policy solutions. And now we're moving into a new gubernatorial administration next year. And it's one of those questions of which of these policies is going to be carried forward. How many of these programs, especially at the time of the states facing budget cuts, how many of these programs are going to survive into the next administration and be continued in the same way? Now, I'll say that the drug importation program has not been hugely expensive for the state as of yet, because it's really just been about paying the staff to do the work and doing a few kind of studies and research. So it hasn't been hugely expensive for the state. But again, every dollar counts now with the state budget, and it will be interesting to see what carries forward.
Well, whether you're talking healthcare and drugs or housing and trying to find affordable housing, so much inertia to fight against, but we will continue to report on it and try to bring you all useful and interesting information about it. John, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mike.
And join us every day for the podcast, but next week again for a temperature podcast and ongoing. So we appreciate all of your time. And again, for those candidate forums, go to coloradosun.com or our YouTube channel and catch up on what you want to know about before you make your decision before the primary. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening. And finally, here are a few stories that you should know about today.
Colorado is forecast to produce just 33.6 million bushels of winter wheat this year. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, that's a 52% drop from the state's 10-year average. Officials say the severe drought and ill-timed periods of freezing temperatures are to blame. A controversial plan to prohibit needy Coloradans from spending food assistance benefits on soda and other sugary drinks and snacks faces another major obstacle. The plan from Governor Jared Polis's office, along with similar food restrictions in other states, was outlawed by a federal judge this week. Wildlife officers are looking for a bear they say attacked a hiker in Jefferson County. A woman reported a bear grabbing her backpack and scratching her leg on Sunday. Colorado Parks and Wildlife officials say bear sightings are high this year, which is likely due to the warm and dry winter depleting natural food sources.
To read these stories and much more, visit our website, coloradosun.com. As an award-winning nonprofit news outlet, we take our mission of credible, independent journalism seriously, and you can check out our trust indicators at coloradosun.com/ethics. Our music is by the Denver-based Matt Skellinger Group. A link to their music is in our show notes. And a special thanks to Swallow Hill Music. I'm David Krause. See you next time.